Hey, look at that.
All right.
Controversy. It's normal Tuesday-ish.
Well, we have the State of the Union.
Normal times are not normal.
Right?
But we're here. We've got beer and we have borrowed nationalist sentiments of resistance and hope.
Slava Ukraini.
So, David, sorry, I'm hunting down that god-awful Millennium Falcon bottle opener of mine.
Yeah.
Talk about form over function. This is the ultimate example.
For those of you who don't know, if you've ever tried to use Lucas's Millennium Falcon bottle opener, it is an exercise in futility and frustration unless you just get used to it over time.
Which I have because it looks cool sitting on the desk as well as, being in use. It's better than the one that I've got another one with a magnet on the back of it. And I forgot where I ended up putting it, but I put the magnet on, I glued it on, and I put it too close so that you couldn't really work it down onto the cap of the beer.
Making it even worse.
I made it worse somehow, and it's pretty bad by itself, but it looks cool, and that's what matters at the moment. But you usually, if you can hear me jacking around with a metal cap, I'm probably opening a Founders. That's the rule.
Is that the Fruitwood?
Mm-hmm.
That looks like Fruitwood.
Fruitwood, I think.
Yeah, no, I like my pronunciation better.
Or no, it's two O's with a long fucking, I don't know. Anyway, we're just using all kinds of various foreign pronounced things. Wait till I tell you about Polish donuts. We had some. They were amazing.
I'm about to say that sounds like a dirty joke right there. I don't know what to say.
It does sound like something you would look up on Urban Dictionary. And then he gave her a little Polish donut. So anyway, we have a guest joining us in a little while. We have Willow Schuyler joining us here in a bit. I'm going to fish out a little water for balance and get my featured beer nice and cozy and save up all that chill.
I'm drinking my water right now. It's called cider.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of water, I actually I did a little visit Sunday to the Knickerbocker in New Holland and tried a few new things, one of which I bought and we'll talk about in a future broadcast. But I tried their Kolsch.
Ooh.
Speaking of water. That is a very slammable, fresh beer. Now, I mean, it's good, but some people don't like Kolsch. So if you don't like Kolsch, it's a Kolsch. It's a Kolsch. So
yeah, I mean, it's Budweiser with flavor.
Yeah, pretty much. It was very good.
Budweiser is technically a lager, but it sucks at doing that. So,
so anyway, so here we are. It's a complicated night because we have, of course, Russia continuing the best war criminalization that they can come up with, which we will do an update on later. We have the upcoming State of the Union, first State of the Union for Uncle Joe. And that was kind of the fun thing I told David we would kick off with just for shits and grins. I figure everybody's got their fantasy sports leagues and their sports books and all this goofy shit. And for us, politics is our sports. And so I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of State of the Union fantasy league action tonight. And I told David our homework is to write an opening paragraph to our would-be State of the Union speeches.
And he was very clear that it couldn't be a me paragraph. It had to be
a normal human being.
A Lucas paragraph.
Yes.
Normal is subjective, okay? My normal is not your normal. I get it.
That's a fair point. So, we both wrote a little something that would be fun. So as you settle in and crack open your own drinks, and please feel free to say hello, we will regale you with our respective State of the Union openers in celebration of tonight's Uncle Joe dream come true. He finally gets to give his first State of the Union. Who goes first? Do you want to go first?
I can go first.
You're the one that sprang this yellow and blue attire on me, and
right.
And you
because that's what tonight at the State of the Union, That's what you're supposed to wear, is yellow and blue, and sunflowers in support of Ukraine.
Yeah, I didn't get
Which,
to
by,
that.
by the way, did you hear that story about the old woman?
Oh my God! Did you watch that on John Oliver?
I didn't see it on John Oliver.
Dude.
I saw the footage.
Okay, so John Oliver spent the first half of his show Sunday talking about Russia, and he played the clip and he had the translation, and I was sitting there the whole time going, "That's a cold ass honky. That is some badass shit." And as soon as he got back from it, he's like, "Let's just take a minute to talk about how stone cold this woman is. She basically said, you should carry our national flower seeds in your pocket so that when your corpse is dead from being beaten, it will rot and grow our flower." Like, I everything that I thought I grew up with and knew about badassery has been re-educated in the course of a couple weeks. I gotta say, that's the silver lining, and such an ugly, terrible thing to have to find a silver lining in. But at least we will be able to tell our grandchildren about the people of Ukraine and how fucking awesome so far they've managed to handle this. And I hope it comes out to be a triumph, but we'll talk more about it.
Well, and I just want to say, like that, we opened with that little banner that said "Slava Ukraini," and for those of you who don't know, just to explain how badass the Ukrainians the Russians should have known. During the Euromaidan protest, that became their battle cry. "Slava Ukraini" means "Glory to Ukraine," and the protesters in the Euromaidan explicitly said out, they said, "No, we're not going to bring guns," even though Yushchenko, the Russian puppet who was governing them, was telling his soldiers to shoot at the protesters. They would still just simply march up with shields and just try and force armed soldiers off of hills and streets. And, if you're already that, like, just a little crazy, but also, like, your balls are already that big, like, no, I don't need a gun. I just need a shield. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll put that back up for the purposes of this conversation. Also, the guy that was pushing on the tank, that footage was badass.
Yeah.
And then the guys that said the Russian warship "go fuck yourself" thing,
who might be alive
apparently
now.
They were just captured and are being held and would ideally, presumably, be released at some point. I already have my Russian warship "go fuck yourself" t-shirt sitting in my cart in Amazon, waiting for me when I get back in town. I'm gonna probably order that. There's actually a lawn flag version, and I'm seriously considering sticking the Russian warship "go fuck yourself" lawn flag in my yard. I just have to do a little bit of research to make sure that over here on the Polish side of town it would be well received and celebrated.
Oh, no. Just to explain, the joke the Poles have been flogging about is it's an older joke from them. Like, well, if the Germans and the Russians invaded at the same time again, like they did in 1939, who would you go fight? And the Polish response is the Germans. Business before pleasure.
I love it. I love it. Well, anyway, you said you'd go first.
I'll go first.
You go first on your read,
I kind of wrote this a little bit script-wise, so bear with me. Madam Speaker, Congress, the rest of the address, blah, 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 blah. Typically, the president, I as the president will show up here and give you the standard line of "the union is strong." I have bad news. This happy warrior bullshit is over. The union is not strong because half of you are calling for a civil war, or at the very least some sort of messed up dissolution of the union in your nutty fantasies, and then telling people that we should do it. So, not good. Right now, the level of wealth inequality in our country is pushing us towards further and further extremism. And again, one half of this chamber is completely fine with that, as long as they get theirs before, I don't know, we descend into complete anarchy, which I would do something about, except, again, half of you don't even think I'm actually president, and don't think anyone who isn't a Republican can actually legally win an election. which I'd like to do something about, except I'm too much of a sissy to actually push real election reform through Congress. We should be raising taxes. I'd like to do something about inflation. And again, if a Republican was here, he'd probably just sign something on paper and all of you all would accept it, including half the members of my own party. But here we are. I'm president, and I'm keep on thinking that as long as I don't punch the Republicans in the nose, they won't, things will get better somehow. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Mark's with us. He says, "Yeah, the union sucks. Yeah, it's not working out too great right about now." Well, David, that was good. I like it. You were less diplomatic than me somehow, so good job. Though I would make up for it by definitely wearing this shirt. So, all right. This is where I landed. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, and my fellow Americans, the state of our union is divided these last few years by my predecessor and many of his enablers who sit right here in this room tonight. Divided as we watch a madman and war criminal invade a sovereign nation after enjoying praise and support from the very same predecessor and the very same comrades. Despite these challenges from a very loud but small minority who've forgotten most of our American vision and values, our way forward shows promise. If we bond together to reject these evils, both foreign and domestic, we will find that the state of our union is strong once again.
Oh wow, you were so much like, normally I'm the one who gets like all eloquent and stuff, and I was thinking, no, I need to keep this on par with Lucas this time, and then look
I see. So you dumbed it down just in case.
Also, you were way too nice. You're like, oh, asking Republicans to work with you. Aren't you ambitious?
I don't know if I
Glutton
intended
for punishment.
That. I pretty much intended to tell people to just bond together against them. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. I don't, my expectations are low. I'm also a little bit disappointed that I'm thinking that he had this whole like package of PR already in the can and all this shit that he wanted to say, and now he had to rewrite it for the Russian situation. And all the while, he's still not going to do anything like announce a pair of balls involved.
Well, I mean, right now that I think we'll get to the Ukraine update, later on the show. But to me at this point, diplomacy is dead in Congress. There's no more point to it. There's no more point to the flowery language or trying to be eloquent.
I think "go fuck yourself" is the 2022 phrase of the year, and it starts with the Ukraine soldiers' sentiment and goes all the way into Congress. I think "go fuck yourself" needs to be a regularity at this point.
I mean, unfortunately, I just don't see any good conversation that can be had with any sort of honesty. I mean, it just doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
And so to me, trying to be diplomatic in your State of the Union, trying to be like, oh, well, because they were talking about like the preface for tonight's speech was going to be, well, we're going to look for points of bipartisanship. That doesn't really exist anymore. We need to actually acknowledge that is not a thing anymore. Well, and furthermore, I want to point this out. Americans don't want bipartisanship. On the whole, Americans don't want bipartisanship. They want you to go in and win. And constantly trying to play this game where you're going in and being like, well, we want to build bridges. Fuck the bridges. Go win.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm also really bothered by the fact that the progressives are going to do a response speech. Did you see this shit?
Yeah.
While I crack open the loudest can in history.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I don't necessarily think it's productive. Although I will say this, one thing that's been pissing me off to no end, I'm about to leave a couple of groups on Facebook simply because the number of lefties that I've heard protesting any U.S. involvement in the war has me just absolutely like, we're past the moon. Like, I'm currently orbiting Europa right now on a slingshot trajectory back to Earth in a giant fireball of fuck you.
Dude, the pansy pussification of culture has really the danger in that is being seen right now, because we need to be willing and ready to fight in a lot of ways, whether it's inside Congress or in an international perspective. And we have so many people that are just afraid of it. But here's my problem with the leftist response. Okay. The progressive response, whatever the fuck it is. On the right, the Republicans started giving their fringe the keys to the bus, and they let them deliver the response. They gave the Tea Party wackos, who would evolve to become QAnon, the keys to the bus. On our side, we refuse to give the future of the party the keys to the bus to such an extent that they feel compelled to have their own fucking response.
Well, you do realize, I want to point out,
it's just going to make us look like boobs.
There's 5 responses.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, there's 5 responses. There's the official Republican response.
I predict a long, drunken night of texts between the two of us after we sign off here.
I mean, I'll try and watch. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to have the time. So yeah, you have the progressive response. Then you have the centrist response, which is going to be some Democrat and a Republican.
We already have the centrist opinion. It's going to be standing at the fucking microphone tonight.
And then apparently there's going to be like the MTG response somewhere in there, or you know, the treason caucus somewhere in there.
And now live to Shitsville. God damn.
It's gonna be long. It's gonna be long.
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll put together our response for next week. That's
right.
That's the cap. We get the last word after all of these boobs. So we're gonna
say, if Biden actually does find something worthwhile to say, I'm not gonna lie. This is one thing that I wish Republicans would understand and conservatives would understand. Just because we voted for him for president doesn't mean that we did so and liked it. And we were more than happy to explain that maybe we didn't like it so much,
or that we're lockstep in everything that he does. I mean,
right.
it's a settling, but we don't love it. And everything we thought would get done isn't happening. Like the people like Kamala that have become invisible and not speaking, doing, etc. So I don't know. It's tricky. Let's see. Olivia's got a good one here. I've seen some lefties say we should stay out of it. This is about the war, but it's our fault. Ukraine doesn't want us involved.
The our fault stuff really pisses me off. I want to
our
point
fault
that
in
out.
the sense of Trump. I've also seen righties hail this as either a good thing to bring peace to Eastern Europe, or justify because Ukraine's former non-state status. Yeah, it is wild.
No, I mean
and there's the blue and yellow with Andrew SOTU is being given from the presidential bunker, right? Yeah.
No, I saw one comment that just sent me over, like that really pissed me off. That was like, well, UK can't criticize Russia because of Ireland. What? I'm sorry. Is the UK currently invading the Republic of Ireland? Is that currently a thing? Is that happening right now? Are they planning to do that? Like, ever?
This is part of this is part of that dangerous culture that we allow, where you get to always reference. I'm gonna take a second to piss off feminists because I have to do it once a month. That concept is like an argument in a relationship with your female partner. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. She gonna drag that shit up from 15 years ago to use against you if necessary. And that is what that sounds like. That sounds like a predatory, petty relationship argument. Oh, well, fucking way the fuck back here, you did something similar, when times were totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't stand that style of argument. And we all do it. It's kind of human nature. It's not fair to say it's just women.
The thing that pisses me off is, in addition, is like, well, the U.S. is just as bad as Russia. I'm like, no, No, it's not. It's not good, but it's nowhere near as bad as Russia or China or any of these other places.
Andrew points out we did Vietnam, for fuck's sake. It's bad no matter what. But yeah, this imperialistic shit is a thing, and it has happened. But we're trying to be in a place where we don't deal with that, and we'll dig into that here tonight with the Russian update at the end. So here's the flow. We've got a guest, Willow Schuyler, coming in. She's going to be in our second half in our big topic, which is going to be a little bit of a discussion of what we've all experienced in social media moderation and corruption. But we also, of course, have brought our thorns in our sides, our pet peeves, our ass pokers of the week. And I'm going to open up so that I can then spend a little time multitasking while you talk about yours, David, because mine is actually kind of super simple. There's a fight going on back there in the homeland of Tennessee.
There is.
Over school start times. And I'm so happy.
You would be.
So happy.
You would be.
Okay. So for those that don't know, down in Nash Vegas, in the land of bat fuck crazy, high school students have to go to school at, I think it's 7:05 a.m.
Yep.
Now, I went to high school in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just outside of town, which gives you your slight edge on homeboy credibility.
Yeah.
There are people watching that went to both of those school systems and then some others. When did you have to be at high school, David?
7 o'clock.
Okay. So basically everything about facts and science says that's a fucking terrible idea.
Yeah.
And it's always been a terrible idea. Teenagers' brains do not engage at 7 a.m.
Just to be clear, they did that so everyone can get to work. Because, again, public school is the state's version, at least as far as Republicans are concerned, of childcare. So everyone had to, if you were in middle school, I don't think if you were in elementary school, you didn't have to get there at 7. But in middle school and high school, you had to be there at 7 o'clock so that mom and dad could get to work.
Well, see, that's not really what they pawn it off on. They have yet to really lean on that. The things that Metro Nashville Public Schools, and all their fucking brilliance, they've been leaning on a couple theories. One, they say that sports programs would have to suffer if we changed the time frame around so that the high school students didn't get out of school at like 2:30 or
we would get out at 2:30,
and then
lunch at 10, out at 2:30.
The other thing that they like to say, so when you come at them and tell them sports ball not as important as education, dumb fuck, then their defense line, they fall back to the trench of racism. And they try to tell you that you're being racially insensitive and you're being classist because you're not being sensitive to the number of working age teenagers that have to go to work in the evenings to support their family income in total. And first of all, that's kind of horse shit. If you really think about it, it's very, very much horse shit.
And I want to say this real fast. In Nashville, at least for what teenage labor can get paid, if I don't even know what that kid's salary is bringing to the table of a household.
Well, right? I mean, if you think about a poverty household, it could really be helpful. But here's my problem with that argument. You don't solve that problem by punishing the whole goddamn county. You solve that problem by creating a last period work study or schedule release that lets kids in need have the time to work. That's how you fucking fix that. So if you want to play your bullshit race card, which they're always trying to play against us when we rise up about something, you would go play it by changing your schedule policies. Oh, they did it. They did it when we spoke out against the crooked director of schools. They said we were all racist because he was black, and I was trying to explain to him, motherfucker, I was excited because he's black.
I don't know who was doing who was saying that was racist. I mean, he wasn't a very good director of schools,
right? But they tried to say if you opposed him, you were a racist.
I'm sure there were some people who tried to play the race card, but I mean, I never really saw that as much.
Most of the reason I was so pissed off was because I was so excited that he was black. I was pissed off twice as bad because of my disappointment that he turned into a black dude that was also a crooked bitch.
Yeah, so, he was not very, no.
It really pissed me off that they would turn that on us, and I'll never forgive Howard Gentry for walking by me going, "Thanks for standing up for the black man." You fucking.
I
Anyway,
mean,
so
here's the thing. Look, Lucas, I'm gonna wonder just a little aloud whether or not it was possibly your presentation.
oh, I'm not
Oh,
going to pull any punches when you're getting your ass driven around in the back of a luxury SUV like you're some kind of fucking celebrity.
well,
Get the fuck out.
well, yeah, Gentry's really wanted to talk about standing up for the black man.
I automatically throw out the opinions of candidates of color whose skin tone seems to magically change from JPEG to JPEG depending on the context. Nashville's got that with Gentry and the sheriff. Check it out. Google that shit.
Anyway,
so this school start time thing, the other rail that they like to ride is that there's a bus system issue that they have to layer it in the way they do because buses. But the problem with that is that they have it backward as fuck. So the elementary schools start about 8 o'clock. The middle schools start about 9 o'clock. And the high schools start about 7 o'clock. So they've already got this system all jumbled up. All they would have to do is flip the times around. And that's really been the argument. So I was geared up like this was going to be my next big school fight had I not moved away. Because up here in the land of sanity, we go to fucking school at 8 o'clock in the morning like I goddamn grew up with. And the hard thing about, and the people that are from Murfreesboro that are watching can attest, the hard thing to digest is watching Nashville bellyache and piss and moan about this timing thing when we all had to be at school at fucking 8. It didn't matter, elementary, middle, high. If you had a family with 3-4 kids, they all had to be at school by 8. Fuck you. You figure it out.
I mean, when I was growing up, it was everyone had to be at school by 7, except for elementary school kids.
So middle school as well?
Yeah. I mean,
that's interesting.
Well, but then again, I went to a private middle school. So,
oh, yeah. So you don't know what the public did.
Yeah. I may not remember correctly about that bit.
Right.
Harding Academy was 7 o'clock, though.
That's fair. Most schools, most people think schools run from 8 to 3, generally. Most places in the U.S. it does. Tennessee actually, Nashville actually has the earliest or one of the earliest start times in the country. And it's all based on cop-out. It's based on a lack of will and a lack of trying, because they've been making this argument for 30 years. My whole life, from the time I was a teenager and aware that I had peers in Nashville that went to school way too goddamn early, I've been aware that Nashville was essentially kicking the can down the road.
I will also say this in slight defense of the system, which is if you tried to have everyone dropping kids off and getting to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, the traffic system in this city would collapse.
Correct, which is why rearranging the times is really what's on the ballot, so to speak. But I'll tell you about that in a second. Andrew points out something. I did forget this. Thank you, Andrew. We went to the same middle school. There was a group of kids that sat in the auditorium. There was like this airlock situation where you would sit around and fuck off in the auditorium until the bell rang to be released into the chaos of the hallways. Alicia's here. What's up, Alicia? Good to see you. Cheatham County, 745 to 245 for all schools, which is a little bit closer to what most people consider humanity. I believe in high school in Murfreesboro, ours was 7:55 maybe was a bell or some shit. And really you didn't start your actual learning until right after 8 or something. Andrew points out there were many fights. Yeah, that's not surprising. But that's always going to be a thing, basically. So what's going on right now to fix this shit? And I love it because of the glory of the reversal. We're always here for a reversal. When the Democrats take a page out of the Republicans' playbook to show them, in this case, it's Democrats showing other liberals, Democrats with a spine showing liberals without a spine how to use the Republican playbook. That's what's going on. So as of tonight, the the Tennessee General Assembly House K-12 committee has deferred House Bill 1836, which is sponsored by John Ray Clemens. I don't know if he's your guy in your neck of the woods, but he was my guy in my
Bo
part.
Mitchell.
Okay. So Clemens is a House rep. He ran for mayor in Nashville. He's a good guy. He really knows his shit, and he's the only politician that bothered to show up at my corporate grand opening for my previous job. So I give him a whole lot of credit because he bothered to, give a fuck. I mean, no one else even bothered to give a regrets, sorry, can't make it email. So fuck them, and thanks, John. But he is the sponsor on the bill, and now it's been deferred to a summer study, which is good because it's not dead. But what the bill would do is it would require each public high school in the whole state to begin instruction in classroom no earlier than 8:30 for high school and 8 for middle school. And that would then force Nashville to comply. Of all the times that some dickhead conservatives force feed some laws and make Nashville comply with some conservative right-wing bullshit, always bullying the city. Now, the parents that can't get the dipshits on the school board to listen to anything they've ever said for 30 years have just taken it to the state level. Democrats in the state have sponsored a bill. It's getting through so far that it'll come back down and force these liberals in name, at least, to actually fucking listen to the people and science and reality. So I'm excited to see it happening. I can't wait to see where it goes. And apparently it's part of a kind of a national movement, because this start school later thing is a nation level kind of pack or something. And there are a lot of school districts where parents are finally pushing back and saying, hey, dumbass, football second, learning first, buses, fuck you, figure it out, and get your schools starting at a reasonable time so teenagers will actually learn and retain information. You seem to be completely in like you haven't defeated this argument.
I mean, I just like beyond the traffic situation. I for me, and maybe it's because I'm not a parent. I remember when I was in high school and I had to be there at 7. I actually kind of enjoyed having more time in the afternoon. I would actually argue to a certain extent. I mean, if you if you had a big like youth crime problem or something, or misdemeanors, the earlier start time, because I have plenty of time to dick around in the afternoons, dude. Yeah. I have all sorts of time to like just do whatever. So I mean, it's. I don't really have a dog in this race.
Well, and where did you
go? To say, we should listen to science. I am a little uncomfortable with the whole having the state push down policy on Nashville, but it's a specific thing about the state assembly likes to kick the crap out of us on a regular basis for really conservative things. I just generally don't like the feeling of having them, even if they are doing it, I guess, ostensibly for a good cause.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of the state assembly telling Nashville what to do.
I'm fundamentally with you there, but we tried. Like, we tried to do it the nice way. We tried to get these fuckers to listen to the people and the parents, and they wouldn't do it. So it landed where it is. But I don't like the principle. I would agree with you about that. And I would love to see it be unnecessary, but as long as you've got these pansies / idiots. And, I can't help but look back at my childhood and go, okay, wait a minute. We had some of the best football teams in the state, and we had school that let out at 3. So fuck your football argument. Yeah. And we also had a lot of students that went to work, and it worked out fine. So fuck your work argument. I don't really know, for lack of trying, what they could possibly argue. They just don't want to do the work. They just don't want to fix it. They don't want to have to reevaluate, change old habits, fire some crusty old fuck that's way up in the directorship that shouldn't be making decisions anymore, and get new people in there.
Welcome to MNPS. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like the number of problems in that whole regard is just so multitudinous.
This is true. This is true. Well, let's move on to what you brought to the table, because you probably have a similar level of fury and enthusiasm as I do for your topic. David is in a beautiful contrast to the historic and worldwide juxtapositions that we're talking about tonight. David has taken on, bull by the horns, some capitalism.
Now, my thing was Netflix just released this new documentary, Downfall, and obviously, like most people of my generation, I immediately thought, "Oh, great, another World War II documentary." But no. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, a couple of years ago, Boeing ran into a big problem, which is it produced a plane that had a bad habit of falling out of the sky, called the 737 MAX.
Yep.
And this documentary went into the entire process of what happened. But the shocking thing, the really shocking thing that Boeing was, first of all, I want to know where these assholes are going to business school. Because I feel like that would be an important lesson that they should probably mention at some point would be if you're going to do something illegal, you do not write it down. Good
David,
God.
you act like they went to class.
You do not write it down anywhere.
You're
Not
talking
in an
about
email.
people who show up, pay tuition, go through the motions, get a piece of paper while doing as much partying and keg standing and at least halfway raping that they can before they get out and high five all their bros and get hooked up with their daddy's companies. It's not education.
You don't write it down. Not in an email, not in a memo, not on a fucking bar napkin. You don't write it down anywhere. You don't
write it down in a boat. You don't write it down in a moat. You don't write it down on green eggs and ham.
I mean, it's just what? But I mean, the fact that they actually wrote down that we know what we've done is illegal, and we're just going to make a whole policy about not telling anyone that we did it. We actually wrote that the fuck down. I'm going to say it one more time because it's like that is Trump level fucking stupid. We wrote down that we were going to lie to federal regulators and do this. And the reason
part
was
ignorance, part hubris, right? Like,
well, I mean, it wasn't just hubris. It was the fact that so much of regulation right now in the U.S. Is based a lot on self-reporting, right?
mm-hmm.
It's up to the company or organization in question to actually fully comply. Now, if they don't comply, there are processes to, penalize them, make them go through the steps. But there's a saying, which is if the penalty for breaking a law is a fine, then it's not actually illegal as long as you're rich.
That's fair.
And that's what Boeing did, is they redesigned this plane, didn't test it properly, put in a whole new system, didn't tell anyone. That was one of the things that showed you just how stupid they were. Obviously, someone thought they should tell pilots, hey, we completely re-engineered the computer because we made this bitch heavy as fuck on the front. And they even came up with an acronym for the system that they used to try and compensate for making the bitch heavy as fuck in the front. And they left that in the index and then proceeded never to mention it ever again, which is why, that these planes crashed, right? More than 200 people died because Boeing didn't tell pilots, oh, by the way, we completely re-engineered the flight system. We should have had to train you on how to do that. And, one of the sad things was, one of the pilot instructors who got called in to investigate after this, he was so sad because, I guess it was someone that he kind of knew or had dealings with, and it was a younger pilot. And from the black box from the crash in Ethiopia, from one of the 737 Maxes, and he was like, God damn it. The kid figured out what was wrong. He just couldn't do anything about it fast enough, which was what was happening. Just to explain, what was happening was when Boeing re-engineered the plane, they made it heavy in the front. So your instinct is to pull the plane up and up and up to get, to keep gaining airspeed and gaining altitude. Well, the problem is if you pull up too fast, you stall, especially if the front of the plane is heavier. So they built in this system that would automatically shove the nose of the plane back down.
Okay.
Problem, however, if there was anything wrong with the sensor that was responsible for telling the system where the nose of the plane was, beyond the simple level, then it would start forcing the nose down regardless, which is why people died, right?
That's
Because
bad.
that
I haven't. You've watched the documentary, right? So
yeah.
So I did not. I didn't get to watch it yet. I think it looks great. I think everybody should watch it. Of course, we can make a list of documentaries everybody should watch, right? But I can't help but notice that the 2 flights that did crash weren't exactly traversing spaces filled with
white people.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
And they make a point in the documentary that Boeing literally jumped on that to try and explain why these crashes had happened. And then they started getting into the nuts and bolts and being like, nope, wasn't because brown people were flying the plane.
I mean, it sounded like they put the problematic situation in places where the only people at risk would be the brown people. To me,
no, it was everywhere. That was the problem. It was everywhere. The only thing that was required for catastrophe to happen was to have a malfunctioning sensor. That was it.
Okay,
just those 2 places happened to have malfunctioning sensors on the front of the plane. And as it was pointed out, when in the midst of them trying to blame the brown people, the first pilot whose 737 MAX crashed was trained in the U.S. Like, no, this was not any of that. So, but the thing of it is, and this is the thing that pisses me off, is of course no one at Boeing went to prison for this.
Of course not.
People died, and they paid a large fine. And apparently, in America, this is where we've gotten to with the level of inequality and the level of irresponsibility with capitalism in America. And I want to be very clear. I like capitalism. I think capitalism is good. The problem is capitalism has to have guardrails. Otherwise, just like there should be rules about who gets to own a gun and what type of gun you get, right? Just like there should be rules about what companies can say about medicines. We don't have anyone like passing off cocaine and alcohol as a patent stomach cure anymore, right? But you know what? Honestly, I feel like the Republicans. I feel like we're moving back towards that, because here we have a major U.S. company, long prided on the quality of its product, that when they re-engineered their corporate hierarchy and their executive staff, went to go chase those stockholder returns as hard as possible, and as a consequence, they built a dud of a machine. And then instead of having to go through the process of having to train pilots on how to fly this re-engineered plane, they because that would have cost them money, right? That was the big thing, is that retraining pilots was going to cost them money, and they were going to have to discount that on the price of the plane when they went to go sell it.
Cheapness and profit and margins and bottom line.
And it's gotten to a point where it's out of control. When you have companies like Boeing looking around saying, we can just pay the fine. When we have companies like pharmaceutical companies, do this. I mean, with the EpiPen. Oh, well, we really need to make sure that our stockholders get a return, not that we're actually doing the purpose of what we set out to do, which is make medicine to save people's lives. We can turn a profit doing that. The focus of where we are right now in America, and at the and there's a bigger scope to this. And this is why this particularly pissed me off. Is they're so focused on shareholder returns, that they're making things which they no longer care meet regulations. In other words, government's power to dissuade them from committing bad acts is no longer there. And why isn't it there? Well, it's because they get so much more money, or are so much more focused on shareholder returns that they don't care. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, I don't think founders would do this. But I'm sure Budweiser, I'm certainly InBev, which owns Budweiser, I'm sure that they have somewhere in their calculus we made a bad batch of beer that might trigger, anaphylaxis in X number of people who consume our beer. Well, what's the what how much money do I stand to make from the beer? And what would that do to my stock price to fix it, as opposed to just letting those people die?
Right.
And the answer keeps on coming back these days. Just let the people die.
Well, it's a pretty common refrain. It's a bullshit duality of you and me go out making an innocent mistake, kill somebody, we are totally on the hook. But if we can do it in the name of a corporation, meh.
And so, I'm going to bring this back to a larger idea of inflation, right? Lots of people are talking about inflation right now. Now that's working. And to me, these two go hand in hand, really, because if your focus is simply on generating returns for investors without actually producing safe products, you can see where it's going. The money's not going into the hands of the employees. The money's not going into the hands of even middle management. It's going directly into the hands of these shareholders, who then reinvest the money in pushing up prices for things that they're going to buy, like more like housing out in Rutherford County, like buying up shares in healthcare providers to get, again, higher returns from their investment, which then drives up the price of our healthcare, because now that they want returns from the hospital's got to constantly start charging your insurance more, or you more, or anyone else more. I mean, it's this cycle, right, where we refuse to be governed in the name of simply creating more and more profit, not because we actually care what we produce.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There is a solution, but unfortunately, you have to convince a whole bunch of religiously delusional people who've been sold a bill of goods that unbridled, unregulated capitalism is the way that they'll get rich too.
I don't. Wake up! Like, do you have a gold-plated toilet? Your erstwhile, I will call him a prophet. I'll try to do that way. Your erstwhile prophet has a gold-plated toilet. Does ICANN come and crack open a bud with you on the porch? Nope.
Yeah.
What ICANN's doing right now is probably, he's found his Epstein replacement, and he's, off at like some mansion fucking an underage prostitute. I mean,
yeah. Well, Libby points out, not sure if beer is ATF, FDA, but FDA inadequately funded to properly inspect all facilities put in their purview. Absolutely does not fuck about.
It is FDA in terms of production. It is ATF in terms of taxation.
Right. And funding is great, but if the rules are shitty, then,
right, because
money invested in bad policy.
The FDA can sit there and have a whole fucking conversation with the corporation about, like, well, we're going to pull your product from the shelves. How long did that take? Right? And how much money did InBev make in between, when they realized there was a problem to when they had to pull the product? And what did that do to their stock price, right? Because that's what they're really looking at, is their stock price. When you have ICANN, I keep on using ICANN as an example. For those of you who don't know, Carl Icahn is one of the biggest institutional investors on the planet. He makes a ton of money. Hey, you know what? There's actually a documentary about Carl Icahn on Netflix, coincidentally. But I mean, when the entire purpose of your business is just simply to turn over profits, and not even profits, just revenue, because you may not even be making a profit, but you've got to turn over revenue to these institutional investors to show them that you're growing. I mean, one of the stories that I always remember from how insane this has gotten with this focus on having to pay off investors. When I was growing up, my dad was constantly terrified of Bell Labs. And the reason he was terrified of Bell Labs is he was convinced Bell Labs would build the computer that would do what he could do for site analysis, and that would put him out of business, right? And he would constantly, like, just hawkishly watch articles about Bell Labs. And then what happened was Bell Labs got bought out, of all people, by Carl fucking Icahn. Or Carl Icahn became a major investor in Bell Labs. And you want to know what Bell Labs did after that? Nothing. It shut the fuck down. I think for a while there was trying to make computer speakers or some other thing instead of, trying to build a quantum computer. I mean,
well, that's because some jackoff said there's money right now in speakers.
Exactly.
We'll
so much of Bell Labs' work
was arguably shitty speakers and sell this many of them, and you'll get this much more money back. I do like Olivia's inside food perspective here. So there's more there. I see the FDA at least every 2 years for full document review and plant inspection, and there are now a lot of regulations regarding food safety procedures. Thanks, Obama. I'm glad some things survived the Trumpicane, because that fucking shithead. I mean, it didn't matter how good of an idea it was. Obama could have literally come out with a concept in government that allowed you to go shit gold bricks, and Trump would have undone it because it was Obama's idea. Like,
probably no, because it would have devalued his gold, and then everyone could have a gold-plated toilet just like him.
Yeah, right. There you go.
I just want to clarify for anyone, because I actually had to sit down and think about this. Yeah, you can make a pun out of that all you like. Cleaning that? I mean, there's a reason we use ceramic. Right?
Yeah.
I don't really understand why you would do that. I feel like if I was their housekeeping staff, I would look at that and just quit.
Well, I would like to believe that it wasn't gold through and through. That
no, it doesn't matter. Just trying to scrub the shit off gold.
Yeah.
No, bad. There's a reason we use ceramic. Anyway, back to the point. The focus on these returns, because again, Bell Labs was pushing American science and American technology beyond anything else anyone had. And then they get these institutional investors who show up and say, well, where's my return? Well, you've got like a 2% return this year, 3% return. Well, that barely covers inflation. You've got to give me more. And you're looking at them being like, at a certain point, you have to understand that you have to spend money to make money. And this constant focus, because that's at the end of the day, what the documentary goes into is that's what caused the Boeing catastrophe, was this focus on shareholder price and shareholder returns. And at the end of the day, if you're a shareholder, there has to be some acknowledgement of, in order for me to get a bigger return tomorrow, maybe it's okay if I don't get as big a return today.
Yeah, you would think.
And it is shocking how bad it's gotten, where we're just going to ignore safety. We're going to ignore all restraint just for the sake of that shareholder price. It's not even for the sake of the almighty dollar, because all these institutional investors have more money than God, right? There's no possible way either they or any of the next 10 generations of their descendants, that's assuming that you keep on splitting it out evenly among all their descendants. Something like 7, I say 10 generations. I think 7 generations. Carl Icahn could die tomorrow and have his wealth divided equally, and it would be 7 generations before any of them actually had to ever work a day in their lives.
Yeah. Yep.
Think about that, because I just want to point that out. He dies, and let's say he has 2 kids, and those 2 kids both have, so his fortune is split in half, and then it's split in half again and again and again and again. It's exponential. It should be an exponential loss, but it takes 7 generations before they reach a point of just cash money. This is assuming they're never investing it ever again. They just have cash money.
Yeah. Yeah. No normal person should support these ideas. No normal person should be in favor of any level of enthusiasm for it. But hey, what do we know? We're just regular people that had to make our way in life instead of having it handed to us. But we can always drink away our sorrows. So we are at that point, folks. If you've made it through 1 or 2, it's time to pop open a new one. It's time again for a beer break. All right, you've already been in it. I could tell.
Yeah, so, I did. Well, because here's the thing. My other beer today is this Diskin Resolution cider, and I'm going to be honest. I can be a cider person if it's a really interesting, nifty cider.
Yeah,
but in general, it's spiked apple juice. Sure. So I've mostly been using that as like a space filler / palate cleanser, because I'm still kind of wondering if I'll get to this later on this evening, which is this trip. I love almost anything that I look at and I'm like, and I say to myself, I would like to drink that that Trim Tab makes, because Trim Tab does make some stuff where I look at it, I'm like, what color were those pills that you took? So I'm kind of interested in doing this Language of Thunder maybe later on this evening or tomorrow. But for my Lucas was super excited when I told him I got this. So obviously I had to do this for my beer. So this is the Founders KBS Hazelnut Stout. I'm probably not going to get to another beer because I just realized this is 12% and you wouldn't even know it.
You sure is. The reason I was so excited was that I had tried this within the last couple of weeks over at the tap room at Founders on draft, and it was among a flight that I did of different barrel age stuff they've got right now, and they had one called Nemesis, barrel aged Nemesis, which those who know me know is the nickname of my cars. So I was all like, oh, I bet Nemesis will be the greatest thing ever. And it was like, eh. And then I did the hazelnut right after. I was like, oh. And I think Nemesis was 14%.
See, that's the problem. I honestly feel most of the time, whenever you're going over 10%, you're in sketchy territory.
Yes.
Because no matter what, you're going to have a little bit of alcohol flavor. I would argue that every percent over 11, it's harder and harder and harder. You've got to find more stronger and stronger flavors to cut the alcohol bite. Because at 14%, you're basically the same as wine, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to be more and more creative. And the problem is that if you aren't willing to attack your that alcohol flavor with something strong enough, and also ask the drinker to be like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you some pretty intense flavors. I'm going to want you to hang on, and because these are not going to go away. And that's true with this really too, which is the hazelnut that they have in here. It's very hazelnut and chocolate. This is basically hazelnut chocolate.
It really is. It's so good.
Maybe there's a little hint of no, there's only maybe just the slightest hint of coffee. Like a lot of times when you find really high alcohol stouts, they're going to veer off into the coffee realm simply because coffee is good for that purpose, right? Coffee can cut that alcohol bite really well. But I really appreciate how they've used hazelnut here and they've just really amped it up. And they've I would argue that they probably added some raw cacao to this.
It is
To
so
get some of
incredibly
that
good.
chocolate flavor in there.
It's very, very good. It's an imperial double coffee. I was flipping out. I think I have one bottle. I bought a multi-pack.
They weren't calling it a coffee at Reds. They were just calling it an imperial stout.
Well, the description in Untapped says imperial double coffee. I don't know.
This is basically Nutella stout. That's what this is.
It is. It is. Now, for those that don't understand, the KBS is a series from Founders. There are several KBSs. It is basically Founders' answer to a barrel-aged series from any group, right? Like Goose Island does a Bourbon County as a series. Like everybody introduces one and then they do riffs. My Dragon's Milk of Much Loyalty and Love is a series. There are special releases throughout the year under the same banner. So the KBS is Kentucky Breakfast Stout. That's the line that this falls under. And I really like the way that they characterize it. KBS was born out of taking a risk on something we'd never done before. We let the beer sit in the barrels for a year, not knowing what would come of it. And at first sip, we knew we had something special. And that's the beer that they have people line up for around the block, people pre-order religiously, etc. Whereas, New Holland has Dragon's Milk and Goose Island has the Bourbon County. So that's where that lands. Here, show people the glory there. You didn't get to show the color.
It's black as midnight, man.
I need to just put a banner together so that every time I say this, I have a graphic to accompany it. But that, sir, is what they call black as hail. So that is beautiful, beautiful stuff.
No, it's very solid, and honestly, if I didn't know, I forgot that it was 12%, because they cut the alcohol bite on this so well.
Yeah,
no idea.
Yep, definitely.
I mean, now that I'm looking for it, I can kind of find it, right? But I wasn't looking for it before, and I didn't know it was there.
Yeah. And Olivia, you're right. It is delightful. So, well, I am not quite as solidly decadent territory, but I am on the second of my Spyglass brews that I brought. So I'm doing tonight the Double Helix Triple, which is from Spyglass in Nashua, New Hampshire. New England style triple IPA, intensely dry hopped with Galaxy, Citra, and Cascade hops. And I remember I really liked this one. Of the flight that I had, this was one of my faves. This one's a 10% triple New England hazy. I probably should have brought a glass up here because it pours with just a gorgeous depth. It's beautiful in a glass. It's easy to find some images of it when you look at beer reviews, so I won't regret that too hard. But I was in a hurry grabbing my beer, so this is a really, really tasty one. The thing that I like about it, it's almost a smoothie with a triple kind of spin or bite. It's got that juicy yet sharp balance that I think sometimes gets lost. Sometimes people go after juicy so much they turn it into fucking juice, and that's great if that's what you're looking for. But this is a nice, healthy blend of both of those experiences. And I dig the concept that they were doing their whole run of the Helix theme, and they did double Helix, and then they just said, "No, fuck it, scratch it out, triple Helix." So good on them for this extremely smooth drinking, but equally bitey and juicy triple that they accomplished here. I'm already getting full from that fruit wood, and I'm supposed to eat something that resembles dinner too. All right. Anywho, so we come to the part of the show where we usually do the big topic, the big panel discussion. We actually, unfortunately, have to give a pass to our guest. Willow Schuyler is, unfortunately, she's sidelined by some unexpected home renovations. There are some very loud power tools going on that are not exactly conducive to broadcast. So Willow, please feel free to pop in on the comments as much as you like. Her contribution to this, aside from being in the land of surviving the dipshit trucker protests, Willow is going to come to us with a few tales of some various platform fuckery, and we will still definitely revisit some of that. But yeah, that's where we're at. Facebook jail for me, and various other platform shenanigans for just about anybody. And David, somehow you've always managed to stay out of Facebook jail.
I don't understand because here's the deal, Mike, and here I think here's what it is. The only time I'll ever lose my cool with anyone is like if I'm deeply engaged in war with them. Like there has to be actual combat. Like we have to be like 12 comments, 13 comments down, right? On our own like sub thread of the post before I'll lose it. Because I mean it's just,
well, I think it's got, there are layers to this, I think, and that's something that I want to kind of
like the only time
on.
and I want to say the only time I got like most recently is some guy was going off about some anti-vaxxer was going off about stuff, and I told him to go chug bleach, right? And Facebook got mad at me for that. Right, but the difference is that was like my second or third comment on the sub thread, so also, I feel like it was easy for them.
You know that shit was interpreted by the bullshit, half-assed, shitty Facebook AI as you suggesting bleach as a treatment in all earnest seriousness. That's how it was interpreted.
They cited bullying explicitly.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Well, they cited bullying explicitly, and I'm like, my problem with this is that I feel like for me, one of my pet peeves, and one of my issues that I run into regularly is I don't talk about shit that I don't know anything about, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because I have nothing to add to the conversation. I am best served by shutting up and listening. So if someone walks into one of my bailiwicks, right, about economics or law or politics, then I come to it from a position of authority, right? I've either worked in this field, or I've done even IT stuff. I'll be like, you know what? There's enough that goes on in IT that I can't ever assume that I know exactly what I'm talking about all the time. And I will only dip my toe in hesitantly. I will normally not directly contradict people unless what they're saying is very obviously and very quickly proven wrong, right? In other words, I can immediately pull up like a fucking article and be like, hey, look, CNET did an investigation on this, and here's all their sources and what they did. And it says that you're full of shit. Like, not just a little, but like the whole fucking herd of cows just took a shit down your mouth and you're full of shit. And I get really tweaked off when people say, well, it's a matter of law. I'm like, no, that isn't a matter of law. Or like, I remember like at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were saying, well, mandates aren't law. I'm like, yes, they are.
I remember this.
Yes, they are.
We spoke about this in great detail many times.
I'm like, come on. But I'll get pissed about that. And sometimes I can lose my cool. But I normally don't just lose my cool off the cuff. What frustrates me personally is that when we're doing this, like when I'm engaging with social media, there's no defense for me to simply say, no, you're wrong. You're provably wrong. And it's one of my arguments against the way social media is currently governed and used presently, because anyone can say anything that is patently wrong, and somehow under Facebook's rules, under Twitter's rules, under all these other rules, we just have to accept it as right.
Yeah.
Now, every now and then, Facebook will get enough pushback from someone to be like, "Oh, no, we need to put a disinformation sticker on that." But even then, sometimes you're like, this is an opinion piece about something, not a matter of disinformation."
Right.
Or they'll like, I remember one thing that I posted that pissed me off plenty that they pulled down, which was a cartoon making fun of the Nazification of the Republican Party, ironically written by a Frenchman and in French. And they pulled that down and ripped it off because it did feature a swastika as part of one of the several of the cartoon
Yeah, I think
panels.
that's algorithms, though. I think that somebody reported it, and the algorithm responded by looking for things. Anyway, guess what your boy has now? I got myself some Facebook jail.
I mean, you literally built this profile. You built the profile to get to try and get yourself out of Facebook jail.
I know.
And what you need to fucking stop, dude.
So I'm currently on the 29-day, basically a 1 month timeout, and they usually do that once or twice before they maybe they boot you. I really don't. I haven't ever figured it out, but I'm gonna have to just go totally friends only again, because it's the public posts that are getting visibility, and that's why I believe that mine is a combination of the hater stalkers that take part of their time in their life to make me their hobby and look for shit they can report, then combined with the right wingers that I piss off that want to go look for what they can report. And then it passes muster with the algorithm. But I don't know if I showed you this, but I brought this with me for today's discussion because it would be very interesting. I pulled the report of all the things that I've been dinged for. And I want you to look at the interesting population of information here. Let me pull this banner out of the way. So these are the posts that they claim are part of the history of why
A little fuzzy.
they've come after me. Well, it's looking good on the stream. I think you might just be receiving a weird version. So if you look at the words I've highlighted,
if I go full screen, then I can see it.
the words I've highlighted are the possibly controversial words that the AI would pick up. So bomb, cunt, okay, fine, maybe. Trash, ugh, I would think that they're applying context to that. But look at the other words that outnumber those words and tell me that Facebook's not totally sucking on Putin.
I mean, here's the thing. I think if we're looking for context, I mean, I normally try to avoid profanity wherever possible. So that's number one. Number two, at least when I'm doing my posts. I mean, it's always bullying, but I don't think I would ever call for someone to be assassinated.
But we should be able to have that discussion about war criminals.
I can see their point where they would rather not have that discussion at all. I'll be honest. I'm not normally like Facebook's biggest fan, but I can see where they'd rather not have that discussion at all.
And I will give them some of that, but you can't look at that and tell me that they're not favoring protecting Russia from critique. It's pretty weird.
I think they're favoring not having discussions of violence as
maybe. So the interesting thing to me here, I went and tracked Twitter down. And let's take a look at my Twitterverse for the shit that they don't apparently have a problem with at all. Because a lot of it's the same shit. Twitter does not have a problem with me. I've tried real fucking hard to curse at the general subject matter.
But I mean, I don't see anything here where you're actually calling for someone to be hurt.
No, but bitch. Okay. They should have a problem with that. Here we go again. Russia. Twitter does not care. I went with this to see what would happen. Twitter does not fucking care.
There we go. And you know what? Listen, I don't like Ducey any
And then
more
here
than
I am using the fucking hashtags to try to get attention. I went all out on this shit. I think this might have been one of the ones that Facebook actually dinged me for. Delete Putin now. I'm straight up on all the hashtags. I've been daring Twitter to take an action like Facebook in any of these cases.
You know what? I don't
And
like
they
Ducey.
won't do it.
I don't like Ducey that much more than I like Zuck. But I will say this: at least Ducey does seem to actually have some sort of motivating principle behind his behavior, as opposed to Zuck, who seems to have a very corporate ideal issue present in his in how he behaves with his moderation. I mean,
hey Eric, real quick, Eric's here, and Eric points out a good point. Twitter allows full-on porn. Why in the world would they care about words? Let me respond to that, Eric, because in our culture, for some backward fucking reason, we don't treat these things the same ever. We always have a contradiction, and yeah, well, it depends on what you call porn. I think you're probably referring to erotica if I was going to get nerdy and fucking comic book guy on you. Actually, you're referring to the practice of erotica, not actual pornography. But
it's
it's
actual porn. I'm not.
The reality is,
for science purposes, I've seen some of it. It's
we never seem to have the same like ethos. It's either all the sex, no violence, or sex not okay, only violence. Like we tend to do weird shit. And you know what? I haven't found it, but okay, actual porn. I thought that there was still some weird nipple shit going on, but whatever.
No.
Don't ask me how I know. We won't. Don't worry. It's the same reason I couldn't tell you why I was mystified at some of the Japanese nipples I found on Instagram this morning. I don't know what happened, man. This girl put this photo up and it has not been pulled down. I don't know what's going on, but I thought Instagram had a deathly fear of the nipple, and they were not on their game this morning. Of course, it's all just meta, which I hate even saying out loud. I hate rewarding that idiotic name with uttering it.
No, I refuse to call them that. They're still Facebook. I will not call them by that other name. I don't give a shit. It is still Facebook. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
So here's what I think happens. I think you and other friends we've got encounter average run-of-the-mill users that just report stuff because they're butthurt. And you also don't engage in this. I don't think you have any public posts unless you.
Most of my posts. Here's the thing: a lot of my posts are public, but for two things. Normally, when I'm posting stuff, I'm either careful with my words. Number two, one of the places I know. Typically, when I post stuff, it's far more erudite, and if you haven't noticed, more verbose. I think on some level, my verbosity screws with their filter, right?
Probably, because I'm out there going for those colored background, artistically enhanced fucking things.
Right. I'll do that every now and then, but for the most part, I'm writing little screeds. Like when I'm on the best of political Twitter, and having to go like crack leftist heads. Because again, I say this as a leftist, but not some sort of fucking, Stalin ball gargling communist.
Right.
I mean, you would never see me in an Occupy Wall Street protest simply because I look at those people and I'm like, if you were going to show up here with this many people, why did none of you all bring Molotovs? You all suck at this.
It's
go write a paper about it.
It definitely will help.
All you're trying to do,
especially with the algorithms. But I believe that Facebook's system essentially is easily exploited by the right in how they want to whine. And the reason I say that is because I've reported plenty of
it's actually verifiable from accounts. It's verifiably tilted towards the right.
It is,
Here's the problem: is
like misinformation, fake news, violence incited or implied. Like I've reported all kinds of shit, and the biggest thing that sticks in my fucking craw is these fake ass accounts.
they really do stick in your craw. Surprisingly, to a
I have
surprising
an
degree, they
average
stick in your
of
craw.
miserable failure on reporting fake accounts. They're clearly fake. They're like created 3 weeks ago. The
So
chick
what
is
Lucas is really
unreasonably
saying
hot.
is the hot Russian chick that keeps on hitting on him in messages isn't real. That's his big problem.
Well, no, it's the fact that it's so obviously not real. Like, I don't understand how they keep giving these pardons. I report them as fake accounts, and they say,
You didn't
we've
help.
examined the account, and we found that it doesn't violate our standards. Really? Because it's not a real person, y'all. There's like maybe a birth
There's
date.
no standards to violate. It's not a real person.
It's so weird. It's I don't know. Now, I will say Facebook at least is a mixed bag. Nextdoor, oh god. Nextdoor is a goddamn train wreck. Like they have all sorts of weird rules. They actually have algorithmically supported rules that you can't use a certain percentage of terms in quotation marks. They have rules against all caps. Think about this for a second. It's a neighborhood focused platform that has rules against all caps. Would you like to know what's really hard to talk about in Grand Rapids without capital letters? GRPD, GRPS, basically fucking anything. They're called acronyms. They appear in capitals.
I was about to say, like, my problem with Facebook on a regular basis, or not Facebook, Nextdoor is, it is Nextdoor has the same problem that Reddit has. Nextdoor relies on local moderators to try and police things.
Yeah, it
and
does.
The problem is that when you have someone who leans fascist or leans far right as the moderator, then all of a sudden everything is too leftist, and it's you can't call me out for wondering why that black person was wandering through the neighborhood. I'm like, motherfucker, like I think like something like 20% of the people who live in my neighborhood are fucking Muslim. What the fuck?
Their platform's concept of neighborhood groups is broken as fuck. So in our little group here, it's subdivided more than it should be. And then the guy and lady that are both the leads for our neighborhood, aka the primary moderators, are a married couple. Same fucking household. That would be a conflict of all kinds of goddamn interest in any organization, but they're cool with it.
I mean, like, yeah, I want to.
And then the guy, like, he likes to say all sorts of racist, half-baked shit that's like, it's not like outright racist, but he'll say stuff like, when Grand Rapids burned during the BLM protests, homeboy, what? Grand Rapids never had a fire. So find the headline, bitch.
Yeah,
you're lying to people. They like to say, "Oh, I'm a pastor and I help the hungry." Well, fuck off. You're still a racist.
The Nextdoor in my neighborhood had to undergo a little bit of a moderation after. So 2 years ago, we had a wave of car break-ins from people. Every house in my neighborhood has a garage. It's a planned development.
Yeah,
every house has a garage. Some people, honestly, that's been me sometimes, have used the garage for simple storage purposes and just parked the cars outside. Some people pull the cars in, but a lot of people use it for storage and park the cars outside the garage. And there was a group that was coming in and stealing from cars, right?
Yeah.
And they had a little kit, right? They would sit there, they'd break the window and grab whatever was available immediately on the driver's side seat or the passenger seat. We weren't talking about like jacking car radios or anything like that because that doesn't work anymore. But like if you left your purse or your wallet or some money on the like in the car seat, they'd smash the window and grab it. Some guy, I don't know what the fuck he left in his ridiculously overpriced truck, because it was a big truck. They rolled up in the middle of the night, smashed the window, went to go grab something. He, for whatever reason, was awake, chased them, got in the truck with a broken glass, which I imagine might have contributed to what happened next, which was in the course of him chasing them down the highway. He lost control, and unfortunately, he passed away from his injuries after his truck overturned. There were so many commentaries about, yes, were the perpetrators black? Yeah. Do black people live in this neighborhood? Yes, this is a multi-ethnic neighborhood. Do we need to have I like then the shrill voices of so many elderly white people rose up at once, and
it's like all the people that you hate the most from Facebook are inhabiting next door with a vengeance. And we actually had the same exact fucking topic this week, where some young couple, and they're brown folks. I'm not going to take a guess. They're brown folks. I'm not going to decide if they're Latino, Asian, whatever, but they're youngish, and they posted that they had a break in. Huh?
They're Martians.
Yes, right. Yeah, aliens. So they had a break in their garage, and their cars were broken into inside the garage. And this is where it goes off the rails. His wallet and some jewelry of hers and stuff. It's like, okay, look. And I was very kind because they're younger people, and I was like,
who leaves the wallet and jewelry in their fucking car?
So I pointed out, like, you can never be too sure. You may have a false sense of security that it's in your garage, but you definitely should never leave valuables in your car in any event. And if you've got any video footage, please turn it over to the GRPD in case they decide this week to lift a finger and do any work.
I locked my car in my garage. Right? The garage door was closed, and then I locked my car in the garage.
Yeah. I don't know that everybody does. I think these guys did not lock it, but whatever.
Obviously not.
Here's my favorite part, David. Some dickwad in a state where all the pot's legal. His contribution to the conversation was, well, you know, now that weed's legal, they all got to do something else to earn money. Fuck you. Fuck you with all the dicks. Fuck you with all the dicks of considerable girth and length doubled over on themselves and inserted fold first, you fucking classist piece of shit. On top of that, where the fuck does this generalization come from? Oh, wait, it comes from the reality that more black men are incarcerated in this country for having a fucking joint. Where is the goddamn logic in the assumption, oh, people that smoke weed are all criminals, but now that weed's legal, they got to go steal shit? What the fuck is wrong with you? And I found some other polite way of expressing all that rage in my comment. I'm sure someone will still report it. So, yeah, Olivia points out I've never been to my town's next door, but now I'm scared to. Here's the other crazy thing, David. Their threshold for what constitutes a neighborhood is dangerously tiny. So right over here at the end of our road is the pretty awesome Bridge Street district. It has a lot of really cool restaurants, and it has New Holland's Knickerbocker. Next to that, there's a high rise, and it's condos, and it is 100% self-contained, its own neighborhood in the next door.
I'm going to be honest. Have you ever lived in a high-rise condo?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this right now. Having lived in a high-rise condo, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It makes sense in a way, but that condo is not an island. It is still part of the district that it's in.
Okay. No, it makes perfect sense because I'm going to tell you there is enough beef already, floor by floor, to account for like 4 herds of solid, big ass beef cattle, man. Like it's no.
I will give you that you're not wrong about that fact, but letting them be insulated from that overall district is a little crazy.
I have never known hatred like I have known hatred over the person who kept on jamming the trash chute. I have never wished death upon someone.
Fair enough.
To the degree, because here I am stumbling out of my house, out of my condo, drunk off my ass, thinking it's fine. I just have to go down the hall and shove the trash into the trash. Oh, oh, oh. Hey! And so now what I have to do, because now it's a fucking mission. Now I've got to get on the elevator with my giant bag of trash, and I'm going down to the dumpster. And I have to sit there and drunkenly, kind of haul back, get ready.
Oh boy.
Well, now I'm extra angry. Now I'm going to go drink more.
I've got this mental image of you. Oh, you dirty rat. So
no, I mean,
right.
like it was mostly well, I mean, and then you have I want to point this out. These are the things that happen in a high rise condo. First, you have the guy who
Where did you live in a high rise condo?
New Jersey Street in DC.
Oh, I didn't think about your DC stint.
Yes.
So,
first you have the guy who jams the trash chute. Then you have the guy everyone. Here's the thing: at a certain point, you realize everyone jams the recycling chute because it's not designed for anything resembling a cardboard box, which is ironic, and that just becomes accepted. Like they leave a cart out for you on your floor where you can load the cardboard up and take it down yourself, because the chute will always be jammed, and the only thing that will ever clear it is a nuclear weapon. So,
so to be very transparent, we're within 30 minutes of the SOTU. So I want to get to Willow's comment that I've left like molding here at the bottom of the screen. I just posted in response to my sister's post disproving her outdated science. At times, I enjoy being petty because it makes people like her mad as hell. I agree; it's so fun. And Eric points out, David, was that frustration or an orgasm? It's hard to tell, but I don't think we want to know what the latter looks like.
I mean,
we don't need.
No, that was not an orgasm. Mostly because that was like that like, if you've ever had to shot put 4 days worth of trash that's in too small a bag. I want to point out, these aren't like your standard when you're in a condo, it isn't like your standard commercial bin, right? It's big.
Yeah.
It towers over you.
Right.
So you have to sit get your throwing arm ready, because you're gonna have to chuck that thing up. Right? It's not just gonna be I slide I wrestle with the door and slide it in on the commercial bin. No, it's something that a small semi comes and jacks up off.
Right.
And it's full semi size, because it's designed to take the entire trash of of a bunch of people all at once. So
real quick, before we abandon ship on the evening's topics and touch on Russia, I forgot at the top to mention that Texas is having primaries tonight.
Yep.
So that's something worth watching. If you're a political dork like us, you got a lot.
No, it's not. I'm going to say no, it's not, and here's why. I'm going to say why it's not worth watching. Because Texas has done so much shit to their fucking ability for people to vote. The number of people who have been voting for 50 plus years who all of a sudden can't vote because their voting records all of a sudden Texas can't fucking find. No, you know what? I'm not watching this primary because I don't know. I don't even care anymore, because it's not really democracy. It's fake.
But as long as Beto comes in as the nominee, I mean, that's what matters.
Fix my camera.
So real quick, let's check in on the Russia situation. So
Slava Ukraini.
I don't understand.
Raise your glass. Slava Ukraini.
I
raise your glass. Slava Ukraini. Cheers.
I disapprove of American media telling us the country's about the size of Texas and then spending days saying Russia is slowly making their way to the capital. And you pointed out that I didn't take into account the fact that the Russian dipshits have underestimated the Ukrainian badasses. They're running out of food and gas.
Yeah, running out of food and gas, number one. Number two, we have to remember, this is one of the things that shocks people. How many people live in Russia?
Fuck, I don't know.
Take a guess.
Fuck, I don't know.
Like, literally, just take a fucking guess, because I want to make fun of you when you're wrong. He looks it
Googling
up
furiously. Oh, I don't know, David. Maybe 144.1 million.
Yeah. So 3 times the number of Americans live in America. Ukraine has how many people?
Oh, for fuck's sake. First of all, Russia has a third of the population of the U.S.
That's right.
And then, proportionally, there are 44 million in Ukraine. Well, minus 600,000, because that's the refugees.
So basically, we're talking about the Midwest trying to invade Canada, or not Canada, California, proportionally.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, who's going to win if the Midwest tries to invade California? No. See, it's rough.
Yeah. Hey, Rob's here. Apparently, he needed a nap, so Rob just woke up and joined us. Eric's jumping in with the count, and so is Rob on Ukraine. So,
why are you? Damn it! I'm supposed to be here making fun of Lucas.
Because I used the Google and came up with the facts. So, I really every morning.
Northern or Southern CA. You know what? But here's the problem, Eric, that the Russians are learning, which is, granted, if someone invaded California today, I'm pretty sure Northern and Southern California would have very different takes on it. But the Russians expected East Ukraine to be pro-Russian, and it turned out, no, fuck you, fuck Putin, fuck totalitarianism.
That's a huge case of believing your own bullshit.
Right. I mean,
that's
really
a massive case of believing your own bullshit. I mean, if there was ever an interesting connection of circle jerk propaganda, that. So Willow points out, and I agree, the concept of Russian tanks running out of gas in the middle of their invasion makes me giggle every time I hear it.
Right.
Also, Rob points out, and as a Californian, he gets to say this: the hippies in North California would roll over, probably. I
don't know, because everyone expected East Ukraine to just roll over, and Kharkiv, which is full of nothing but Russian speakers, actually had the Russians breach the city, and then they got all their shit together and threw the Russians back out of the city.
So far, everybody, especially Kharkiv, is taking the wreckage of Russian military vehicles and fashioning the wheelbarrows required to tote around their balls. I mean, it's been so uplifting. And I got to say, it's been a minute. It's probably been since 9/11 that I looked at the news every morning trying to find out what's new, what's going on. And I have to say that either while I'm still in the bed and haven't gotten out, or as soon as I sit down on the throne, I've got the phone and I'm looking, hoping that I don't see the fall of Kyiv headline.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I don't know if the Russians have it. I mean, I know they've got, like, they're quoting like, "Oh, there's a 40-mile long convoy." Well, that's great. But the only problem is, how are the Russians going to resupply them? How are they going to refuel them? And while they're sitting there,
is it even moving, or is it out of gas?
It's literally out of gas. It's out of gas. And while they're sitting there, it gives the Ukrainians plenty of time to take all those javelins we gave them and put them to good use, which the Russians are now quickly learning. Hey, by the way, our tanks resist your RPGs and all the rest of your stuff. Your armor, coincidentally, doesn't. And I want to point out something else that is probably happening right now at the front, which is when Russia tried to attack. Well, they did attack Georgia, and to seize territory off the edge of Georgia, which was South Ossetia and Abkhazia. The Georgians learned something really cool, because a lot of people were looking at photos of Russians during the Georgian War, and all the Russians were riding on top of the armored vehicles, and no one could figure out why. And it was because the Georgians figured out that standard 50 caliber machine gun ammo has this really nifty trick of penetrating Russian armor, which means that World War II, like if you've ever watched a World War II like movie and that guy is standing there behind the machine gun that's going that's what's called a Ma Deuce, an MA2.
And we talked about that last week, I think.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
You used the same thing last week. It's become a gimmick.
The Georgians figured that out.
Now the next time we talk about Twitter porn, you have to say
but I mean that is probably something the Russians are being reminded of right now, which is
well, and let's be real, a lot of these guys are like 19-year-old dumb fucks that didn't even want to do this in the first place. There's a whole lot of malaise.
That's something that we most Americans also don't understand, which is Russia is a conscript army, which means if you are anywhere between the ages of 18 and 26, the Russian army sends you a letter one day and says, report to basic training.
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice. Right?
Rob, saying, when Russia turned his back on Ivan Drago, he moved to Ukraine and raised his strong boxer of a son. So yeah, Ukrainians are some tough motherfuckers, and I love it. And then I like Willow's prediction: Russia will be pushed back by the Ukrainian Babas arming themselves with corn brooms, wooden spoons, heavy-duty rolling pins. And you know what? I think we should circle back around and close our broadcast by talking about that fucking badass Ukrainian granny,
right,
facing down the Russian soldier. Who, I mean, I'm going to give him credit for professionalism. He stood there and said, "Please don't escalate. Please leave me alone." And I'll give him credit, but he's still a fucking dumbass, and he's representing a fucking dumbass. But she basically told him, the national flower of Ukraine is the sunflower. Here are some sunflower seeds. I want you to put them in your pocket, because when you die after we fucking kill you, your corpse will rot, the seeds will germinate and grow our national flower where your dead fucking carcass once laid. And that was some cold ass granny. And I love it.
And to tie some stuff together, I don't think I've ever been more attracted to like the Ukrainian warrior women, like with like the sunflower and like I'm like I didn't even know this was a thing that was going to tweak me like this. I don't even. I'm like,
and that's what's happening. David's going to sign off here, and he's going to Google Ukrainian sunflower granny porn as soon as he can. Anyway, folks, we're going to jump off here so we can get ready for the State of the Union. If anything worthy ends up happening, I'm sure we will make some posts. Yeah. Both David and I will probably be sitting there drinking and recklessly holding the Facebook admin in our hand and saying all kinds of random shit. And then, of course, next week, it looks like it might be likely that we issue our State of the Union response. We'll see. I'm secretly hoping that some great shit happens. I entirely expect it to be an Uncle Joe snoozer. Maybe I'll get my very base minimum request that we establish a no-fly zone, because that shit should be fucking child's play. We'll see. Anyway, we're going to go watch the SOTU. You should too. And with that, we'll say good night.
Good evening.
And
good luck.